You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni, and Travis Hymas has the week off, and he very much deserves it. He's been working super hard for Rookie Pirate Radio. Fortunately, I do have two wonderful guests with us today. Now, the first one, is Allie Johnson, editor-in-chief of In Between Drafts, really a guest at this point? Allie, I just feel like you're an institution when it comes to Rookie Pirate Radio. That's how I would characterize it. But how are you doing, Allie?
I'm good. I feel like I am riding the coattails of the hard work that you and Travis do, and I just pop in every once in a while to say hi and try to bully people into watching what I love.
That's great, though. You're the mangaka. We're just sort of we're Toei Animation. We're just making it all work from there.
I think that's a terrible.
I'm not great at metaphors. You know this.
No, go ahead.
We do have another special guest making her debut to Rookie Pirate Radio. So glad to have her. She is a writer for In Between Drafts. She's actually been doing the manga, or not the manga reviews, the anime reviews. What's the difference between anime and manga? The anime reviews for Hell's Paradise, which we're going to get into here shortly. Welcome to Rookie Pirate Radio for the first time, Kayla Lupoli. How you doing, Kayla?
All right. I'm really excited to be here this week.
We're excited to have you just because, you're the Hell's Paradise expert, is my understanding. So Travis is the one who said, you know what, if you're going to talk about Hell's Paradise, you can't do it without Kayla Lupoli. And that's why we are here, and we're happy to have you here so much.
Awesome. Super excited to be the expert on Hell's Paradise.
Right. Because you've been reading the manga, or is the manga completed? I actually don't know that.
Yeah. So it completed, I think, a year or two ago. I'm actually not too sure, but yeah, I've read it. I'm watching it, obviously. It's one of my favorite mangas, and now having it into an anime is really great.
Yeah, I have so many questions along those lines of how the anime is doing for fans of the manga. So this is a real treat for us. And of course, for those of you listening, if you want even more thoughts on Hell's Paradise, especially as we move past the first few episodes, Kayla's going to be reviewing the anime for us on InBetweenDrafts.com. So for sure, if you haven't already, be sure to, well, of course, add In Between Drafts to your bookmarks. But even better, you can go on our Discord server. We have a link to that in our show notes. And in our Discord server, we have an anime channel. We have, of course, our One Piece stuff as well. You can hang out with all of us in the Discord channel who are there, at least. Not all of our writers are there, but a lot of us are, including me and Allie. So you can talk to us, hang out with us, recommend anime to us, all that good stuff. But Hell's Paradise, it is 3 episodes in. And Allie, I do have a question for you, because before we set up, okay, what is this anime for people who haven't been initiated? They're not sure what it is. I want to start with a little bit of hype. I feel like a lot of people are calling this the anime of the season, or at least it's one of the ones that people are liking the most. I don't know if you agree with that. We talked about Hell's Paradise in our anime preview episode a couple weeks ago, but for you, do you think this is kind of in that zone of okay, this is the one to watch, or one of the main ones to watch?
I'm split on this because, one, I really love what I've seen so far. So the easy answer is yes, mainly because it's a MAPPA project, because it feels that kind of shonen vibe that's going to bridge people from, say, something like My Hero to Jujutsu Kaisen this summer. And it's all well done, but I think it and Heavenly Delusion, which is going by a different name in the US, are probably the two that have the most credibility in terms of artistry behind the scenes. And those are the two that kind of got a lot of hype. But so, yeah, it's not my anime of the season, but it's definitely the one for both newcomers and people who like this genre. It's definitely going to be the one to kind of watch week to week.
Yeah. Maybe we should talk later too about okay, which fans of which big anime series would like this the most. There are a couple I can think of off the top of my head, but I'll admit my anime of the season so far, it's only 2 episodes in, but Galaxy Next Door, which is one you mentioned, Allie, in that anime preview episode. That's the one I've been obsessed with, and I don't know how surprised you are by that. I feel like you are kind of rubbing a little bit of yeah, John's gonna like this one.
I'm not surprised. I haven't actually watched it, but just by the description alone, I'm not surprised. But also,
Like,
I think
this sounds like the weird bingey slice of life thing that John gets obsessed with all the time.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's because I can tell where our tastes kind of find our own pockets of like my anime of the season right now is Skip and Loafer. And I think we kind of gravitate towards either slight weird romances or slice of life. So I'm not totally surprised. No.
Yes, and I am liking Skip and Loafer as well. I've just seen the first episode, but I liked it. All right, so Kayla Lupoli, for the uninitiated, how would you describe Hell's Paradise? Obviously, we don't want to give too much away, but what do you think is like the main hook of this setup and the thing that kind of drew you to it as a manga, and now that you're watching the anime?
I think I would describe it as Samurai Champloo meets Chainsaw Man.
Perfect.
Which sounds a little weird, but the aesthetic and the vibe is definitely Samurai Champloo. It's set in that era, and just the violence and the gore is obviously a staple for Chainsaw Man, and it's a staple in Hell's Paradise. As for what got me, I mentioned this in my review for this week, but Gabimaru is a total wife guy, and to see that in a main character of a major shonen manga is a little rare. So I think the characters and the way their backgrounds are revealed and the way the plot is exposed as well was what really dragged me in.
That makes a lot of sense. One of the main things I wanted to mention was that first episode, which I think is just so brilliant at bringing the watcher into the anime. I'm curious how many manga chapters is included in that first episode, just getting to know Gabimaru and his story. What I was thinking like throughout the whole thing, I was like, man, this is like a short story, just like a brilliantly executed short story. You could have just had that first episode, ended it a little bit differently. Don't have the sort of like hook into the premise, but you could have just ended it with like really what this character goes through and realizes at the end of that first episode. And you just have like a brilliant 20 minutes, in my opinion. But obviously, I want to know what you both think more specifically about this series. Allie, who do you think this anime is for in terms of like, I know it's not something that is too unfamiliar. I think the Samurai Champloo and Chainsaw Man comparisons are pretty apt. But is there anything else you would bring to the table to sort of like entice fans and maybe explain like why do you think this is sort of like striking a chord? Because I'm seeing Hell's Paradise everywhere and people are really getting into it.
The only one I would really add, I guess, for modern hooks would be something like Demon Slayer or again, Jujutsu Kaisen. I think it's the people who really get grabbed by event anime, the ones that everybody are talking about and the ones with like a clear budget. Not to say that is a make or break for anime, because there's been plenty that have high budgets that are, just fine. But in this case, I think the action scenes are going to be an enormous draw for people because they're fluid without losing the actual motions that they're going through. You don't get confused by who is where during the choreography. But the Samurai Champloo and Chainsaw Man comparison is so apt. The only other thing I'd add are, there seems to be a level, or I guess there's an explicit level of body horror. And I don't know if it's because I've been writing about it recently, but I'm getting reminded a lot of Annihilation. So I wonder if that kind of science fiction fan who maybe isn't drawn to, this era of samurai story or action stories might be a little bit more curious because there's this level of weird fantasy and dark fantasy.
Yeah. I think the fantasy in it is certainly like, it's not like a lot of things that exist out there. The main premise of the show is that in this world, and I think Kayla already touched on this, we have people like kind of like Shinobi, but really like you have people who essentially have like superhuman powers for various reasons. It feels like a big world because you have like all these like criminal characters who are sort of like a suicide squad. Essentially, they have to go to this island to find this elixir that could lead to them being pardoned if they do it successfully, but they're being monitored by these extremely powerful executioner samurai, essentially. who are beholden to the Shogun. And yeah, Annihilation is such a great like comparison point in terms of like, yeah, that we're talking about Annihilation, the movie directed by Alex Garland. And in that movie with Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac, there is this sort of like, body horror that has to go in with like nature, which is where this show is coming in. So that makes me curious, Kayla, like, how faithful do you think this anime is to the manga? Because I've been wondering a lot about like how the pages really translate here, and if a lot of that stuff is really like true to the source material.
Yeah, I think they're doing essentially a 1-for-1 with the manga from what I've seen at least, which is really interesting because the panels themselves are very fluid. And it can be a little hard to translate that into an anime at times because it's a different medium. But I think it's translating really well. And the pacing of the scenes and the episodes themselves are just working really well. And if you had to put it into a word, it's a banger in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the pacing. The pacing and the editing have been highlights for me because I think I've gotten a little bit one of my main issues with Demon Slayer, since that was another one, Ally, that I was going to bring up, is like, yeah, this definitely seems like something that is up the alley of like a Demon Slayer fan, which I've criticized, I think, on this podcast as like, oh man, I really liked the pacing and the editing in the first season, but I've just found it to be kind of painfully slow in the later seasons, and especially the manga. I really don't like the manga of Demon Slayer personally, but no shade, of course, to people who love it. And do you agree about the pacing, Allie? Because I'm just like, I'm a little bit conflicted because there have been a couple times where like, I do kind of wish we had stretched this out, maybe had a little bit more atmosphere established, because we do kind of just like jump right into the next thing, which is nice because it matches the frenetic chaos of the show, or the story, I should say. But there have been a couple moments where I'm like, could we slow down a little bit to make sure this character work is paying off? But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I was a little hesitant to even compare it to Demon Slayer because I have the same issues that you do with the show, plus probably some of my own side ones. But in the case of the pacing, I actually think the pacing has been excellent, especially since the first 3 episodes we can pretty much call setup episodes for the series going forward. We know our 2 leads, we know their dynamic, and we are ready to go and like address the world that they've introduced to us. The only one I had a vague issue with was honestly the first episode, which is funny because you enjoyed it so much. And it's not that I thought the pacing was bad, but it didn't truly come alive to me until Gabimaru's real personality kind of exposed itself. And he became, like Kayla said, this very charismatic wife guy. But no, so far I've thought the pacing has been really excellent because it feels like, again, this has been the prologue to what's actually going to be the meat of the story. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but it feels like we're going to get more of the characters and who they are as they're facing these kind of daunting horrors that they're about to be facing off against. So I'm really excited to see how it goes. But so far, it hasn't lagged in any way for me.
I, of course, have to play the devil's advocate, devil being the appropriate term concerning the name of this anime. But I do want to do a little bit of like, okay, so where are some potential issues I see? And I want to hear your takes. But if there is one thing I'm a little nervous about, now that we're like 3 episodes in and we have seen what Gabimaru the Hollow can really do, what he's capable of, and we're getting hints of like his strength, abilities, and how it contrasts to the other sort of like super criminals that he is contending with to get this elixir, I'm a little curious, like how overpowered he is coming across right now, which is something that I think could be addressed eventually. But Kayla, of course, you're the expert. I know you don't want to give anything away. I know I don't want to like, get you to tell me stuff that I'm not ready for. But is that something that you've kind of seen as well? That's just like, all right, so Gabimaru is like really powerful, but where is it all really headed? And it's like, how are they going to continue to make this world feel dangerous if it feels like the main character is like better than everybody else?
You're definitely right in kind of thinking he's a bit overpowered right now, especially with the last episode showing which characters may or may not have died based on certain scenes that we got. But It does work out. You do learn strengths and weaknesses for him. You also learn them for all of the other characters, as well as the main antagonist once they're introduced. And you do learn that he is not this super powerful, overpowering guy who can just get away and not be harmed. But they are building him up as this like big, strong guy, like nobody can beat him, Mary Sue sort of character. And I did have a little bit of an issue with that, if only because they made him seem so overpowering. But I think it'll work out. If not this season, then definitely in season 2 if there is one.
That was a perfect way to like let us know without like spoiling anything. So well done. I do want to mention the Asemon here. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but the main executioner, Sagari, who is following Gabumaru and keeping an eye on him, she has some interesting character moments where we have this element of like she can see like essentially like supernatural forces in her blade and things like that. And it kind of gets me thinking about the world building in this show. What do you think? Where do you think that world building is for you, Allie, in terms of like, okay, is this a hard magic system? Are you feeling like enticed by this world? Are there a few things that you still have some questions about, like in terms of how this world works and how the fantasy in this is supposed to really come across to us right now this early? Because for me, I'm a little bit like, I'm not feeling like I'm totally immersed yet, but I feel like I'm getting there. I'm curious how you feel.
I'm definitely immersed, but I think I did have some lingering questions, like you just mentioning that she can see kind of have a supernatural presence when she looks at the reflection of her sword. I was still wondering if that's just supposed to be like, you know, a metaphorical, she is seeing those who she has killed, or if she's actually seeing reflections of who the people are. But with the fantasy that's kind of seeping through all of it, I wouldn't be surprised if it is like literally she can see the souls of those she's killed. But otherwise, I think so far I'm immersed because it doesn't try to over explain things in a way that, again, like Jujutsu Kaisen, I think loses people in the first couple episodes if you don't stick through it, because the terminology is just say magic, you know, just use like straightforward terms.
Well, for them, it's like curses. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think sometimes the lore becomes too specific to the point of trying to set itself apart, but it ends up losing its focus. So I do like that so far it's not really trying to over explain. It's more like just come into the world and immerse yourself in it and let it just kind of wash over you. And I do like that so far because, you know, it doesn't take a lot of explaining to be like, they're going to a magical place where bad things happen. Watch them fight out of it. So I like the idea of kind of slowly introducing elements and details of the history throughout the rest of the season, rather than giving us like a explaining, or not explaining, that's not a word, an exposition dump of an episode.
Yeah. Same question for you, Kayla, because obviously you have a more complete picture of the world building here. But yeah, what do you like about the world building? What do you dislike, if applicable? You know,
I think for me, the world building itself, like the fantasy aspects, the magical aspects that these characters may or may not have, kind of drags you in. And like Ali said, it does just immerse you. It doesn't bog you down with all of the lore explanations, which eventually do come. They do explain what certain things are or how they might work. But in the beginning, it just dumps you in. And I think that's a really great way of getting people interested and having them stick around, because it's just this overwhelming universe that you're introduced to, and you just kind of have to run with what's happening. But I think it works. I think it really works for this sort of anime.
Absolutely. So I only have one more question, and but this is obviously the most important question. Got to save the key stuff for last, right? The opening intro. What do we think about the opening intro for this? I actually don't have the credits for that. I should look it up in terms of who performs the OP. But yeah, we'll start with you, Ali. What do you think? Because I feel like this is, for context, for me, it usually takes me 5 or 6 episodes to know whether or not I like the OP in terms of the music. But how are you feeling about it so far?
I've definitely heard worse.
I'm always curious. It's like, it's not really like everybody's cup of tea, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It's just, honestly, for me, it's kind of forgettable, especially in a season so far where there's been a couple of openings, whether it's just the visuals, the song, or luckily for some, both. I've been really struck by how well suited they are for the show. This seems kind of like a throwaway almost. It just doesn't seem like it suits the overall tone. I think they could have gone in a different direction. But again, the worst part is that I'm like sitting here going, what does it even sound like? Whereas some of the others I was actually humming, which is embarrassing. But again, my heart is like tethered to Skip and Loafer right now, so it can't be helped.
I think that was the thing I liked about Trigun Stampede the most, was that I liked the OP more than the anime. But just because I thought the music was killer. I would say like my favorite one right now is My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 9999. I love the intro for that. But what about you, Kayla? I think that's for you as a manga reader. How is the OP coming across for you? Like it, dislike it, in between?
Visual wise, I think it's great. Actual song, though, not my favorite. I feel like they could have done a better song.
I think that's fair. It's so funny because I'm watching it. It reminds me of like a PlayStation 2 video game intro, which I don't know if was like the intention, but yeah, I'm sure plenty of other people do like it. It's working for them. And again, I just feel like sometimes I like really hate openings. Like Black Clover, there were a few that I couldn't stand until I've watched them like 10 times. And then I'm like, well, I can't skip this. Like I have to watch it. It's important and it sounds great. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Hell's Paradise. All right, so that's Hell's Paradise. You can watch the sub right now on Crunchyroll. I think the dub is going to be coming out as well, if you have to watch the dub. I know Allie and I are fans of subs over dubs, but I don't know if you are, Kayla, because what your preference is, but of course, different strokes. But good way to finish out, I think, if we can. Is there any other, we've already mentioned a few other anime that are out this season, like Skip and Loafer, Galaxy Next Door, but is there anything else that's been on your radar, or manga too, that you would like to plug real quick as something to watch? I haven't watched Oshi no Ko yet, but we have folks in the Discord who are like, oh yeah, this is definitely one to watch. I think that one might be on High Dive. I forget actually. I also really, because since you mentioned Allie, I do want to watch Heavenly Delusion. I believe that's on Disney Plus right now. Is that correct?
So it is worldwide. It's on Hulu for us.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. We did talk about this and I just keep forgetting. But yeah, we can start with you, Allie, because I know you've been kind of like watching a lot of the new stuff. Is there anything else that, even if we already mentioned in the anime preview, that you're watching and liking?
Yeah, the stuff that I've stuck with, and I'm still going to catch up on. I've seen the Love Story, the first episode, and I still need to catch up on my Galaxy Next Door. But the one,
which I got to ask before you get into it, when you watch Love Story with Yamada-kun, were you like, oh, John did it again? He likes the weirdest stuff, or like John likes something dumb? What happened?
Not dumb or weird, but I wasn't surprised.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what type of shows to recommend if I find something that you haven't stumbled onto first. But I feel like I'm getting a general sense, and I try not to do the thing that others do where they just send everything that they like, assuming somebody will like it too. I'm like, no, you've got to curate this shit. Am I not supposed to swear on this? I apologize.
I can bleep you out.
But for me, I'm watching, Dr. Stone and Insomniacs After School on a week-to-week basis. But yeah, definitely Heavenly Delusion and Oshi no Ko are the two that visually have just stunned me so much since watching. Nice. And Oshi no Ko starts with like a 90-minute movie to really just establish the world and to rush you through the parts that might push people away. But John, the reason I suggest this one too is that it's written by the person who wrote my love story, or not my love story, Love is War.
Yes. And that that's why I wrote it down, and I was like, it's gonna happen, and I'm gonna probably, you know, because ever since the Love, I told you this, ever since the Love is War manga ended, my heart ended in a small way.
And I get it, you know, that happens with things that you love when you finish them.
Yeah.
But in this case, make sure to set aside the full 90 minutes, because I can see people watching 20 minutes and being like, where on earth is this going? And it really resolves itself in a really beautiful way.
Speaking of Love is War, did you end up watching the 4 episodes that were out?
No, I haven't yet. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, you're fine. You could save it as a little treat when you're less busy.
Yeah, when like I've run out of every other show I've decided to watch this season.
Well, that could take a long, long time. So, all right. So Kayla, I don't know your anime tastes that well yet. I've only talked to you about Hell's Paradise. So I definitely want to know if there's anything that's stuck out for you that you would want to share.
Yeah, the only thing I've been watching this season was actually Magical Destroyers, mainly because I've been rewatching a lot of older animes. I tend to get into like a rewatch every springtime, but I would love to watch any of the newer ones that are coming out. I would love to hear any of your suggestions, because I'm totally open to everything and anything. I love a good slice of life, all of those.
You're in the right company.
Because I'm just finishing up Parasite, so I need something lighthearted.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What's some of the older stuff you like?
So I mentioned Samurai Champloo before. That's probably my top anime of all time. Trinity Blood, which is a little obscure for a lot of people. I recently started Slam Dunk. So I guess the early like 2000s animes are kind of my bread and butter. I just really love the aesthetic and the plots of them. They always strike a chord with me.
Allie, I think the universe is telling us something, because this is the second time Slam Dunk has been invoked on this podcast, and like you and I have been sitting there like picking up the ball, like we got to watch this classic. Apparently,
I know it is funny that the last 2 times I've been on, this has been brought up, and it's definitely one of my major blind spots. What was the Trinity one you mentioned? Because I'm like writing down what you said.
Yeah, same. Trinity Blood.
Yeah, Trinity Blood. It's a vampire anime, but the concept is really cool.
I think I've heard of this. It's like based on light novels, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, hopefully those of you listening have been writing this down too. But of course, it's in podcast form, so you can just sort of re-listen to it. And thank you if you do. Thank you to everybody who listened to this roundtable. Obviously, it's a very exciting season of anime. Tons of stuff to watch. Tons of stuff we didn't even get into. But certainly no shortage. If you have any suggestions for the show, because we normally do One Piece recaps, we're going to be doing another one, me and Travis, this coming week. But we'll of course keep trying to do fun episodes like this on off weeks when the manga is on break, and we're always of course open to doing like bonus stuff, anything that the community here wants to hear from us. And the easiest way to get in touch with us is to email us. rookiepirateradio@gmail.com is our email. I'll say it one more time, rookiepirateradio@gmail.com. Hit us up anonymously if that's how you prefer, or join our Discord server. We'd love to have you in our community. We don't just talk about anime, we promise. Anime and manga, of course, and all that fun stuff. We also have film and TV, books, music, all those channels as well. We even have a channel dedicated to which pizza chain is the best one, Domino's or Pizza Hut. It's a thriving community, very divisive and polarizing, but I think we're making a lot of progress on that battle. Allie, I think we're going to eventually have to do one for boy bands, because there's a war brewing between Backstreet Boys fans and NSYNC fans, and the lines are being drawn on that. And Allie, your camera's off, but I can kind of see you shaking your head and wishing that I was a different human being entirely.
Not at all. Not at all. I really, really value this level of energy that is brought to this team. Especially since I had to ask somebody recently, which one was in sync again?
That's a classic Allie Johnson maneuver. All right. All right. We'll see you all next week for the next installment of Rookie Pirate Radio. Kayla, Lupoli, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to plug before we say goodbye?
Just check out my weekly review for Hell's Paradise this season.
Yes, please do. They're great reviews, and yeah, you can find all of them in between drafts in the anime section. Be sure to do that as soon as you can. But all right, see you, everyone.